We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Russia launches large-scale airstrikes across Ukrainian capital Kiev, forcing thousands into underground shelters. Ukrainian officials say this is the largest missile attack on Kiev since August. Gaza-based Palestinian Islamic Jihad group releases a video of an Israeli hostage being held in the Gaza Strip. It remains unclear when the video was made. However, the hostage shown in the clip was originally captured by the Gaza-based outfit called Hamas. Colombia declares a state of emergency after torrential rain causes flooding across the Latin American country. Officials say more than 90,000 people have been displaced due to the extreme weather. Ghana's Supreme Court restores the ruling party's majority in the parliament ahead of the December 7th election. This after 4 lawmakers decided to leave the party to contest as independents. The apex court rules that vacating seats before the election is unconstitutional. And Niger's military junta has invited Russian firms to mine uranium in the West African country. This after a French nuclear firm suspended uranium mining operations in Niger last month. Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest from the Horn of Africa. Somaliland, a breakaway territory of Somalia, is conducting presidential polls. It's a high-stakes election which can have major implications for the region, where Somaliland is at the center of the ongoing geopolitical tensions. Located just near the strategic entryway to the Red Sea, Somaliland is an autonomous region in Somalia. It declared unilateral independence in 1991, but is not recognized by any other nation. Despite this, it has its own government, currency, and security structures. Its government has been pushing to gain international recognition, a move which has angered Somalia. Now, the polls come at a time when tensions are heightened. Candidates running for Somaliland's president have put international recognition as a clear agenda. Over 1 million eligible voters in Somaliland are choosing their president for the next 5 years. Now, the candidates include the incumbent president, Musa Bihi Abdi, who is seeking a second term. He belongs to the Unity and Development Party. His main challenger is Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi of the Wadani Party. Now, the third candidate is Faisal Ali Warabe of the Justice and Development Party, or the UCID. And all of these candidates differ on domestic issues. The region has seen a decline in economic growth in recent years. Opposition candidates have been pressing for growth and jobs. In fact, economy was a major reason why Somaliland postponed the presidential polls from 2022 to 2024. The second key issue is democracy and the electoral process. Somaliland has maintained a stable political environment despite not having any international recognition. However, the incumbent president, who has been in power since 2017, is accused of practicing authoritarianism. Postponing the elections for 2 years further raised these concerns. Then the region faces some internal conflicts as well. There is a clan-related conflict ongoing in the territory's eastern region. where rival militia are claiming control over a city. So while these issues divide the candidates, they are all united over one thing, which is seeking international recognition for Somaliland.
In this election, all Somalilanders will win. It is not just one particular political party that will come out on top. Our national interest in government will succeed when we peacefully cast our ballots and when we count those ballots peacefully.
The opposition candidates have all expressed their support to a deal which the incumbent president signed with Ethiopia. As a part of the deal, landlocked Ethiopia has been allowed to gain access to Somaliland's Berbera port and a part of its coastline. In exchange, it agreed to become the first nation to recognize Somaliland. The full details of the deal have not been made public, but the deal has sparked regional rivalry. Somalia expelled the Ethiopian ambassador after the deal was signed. It is also expelling Ethiopian troops who are helping Somalia in fighting against Al-Shabaab terrorists. Now, Somalia has confirmed that Ethiopian troops will not be a part of the renewed peacekeeping mission next year. Somaliland's elections are having an impact on Somali-Ethiopia relations. And Somalia's candidates have pledged to continue the deal with Addis Ababa, calling it significant in Somaliland's fight to seek independence. But there is another potential game changer for Somaliland, and that is Donald Trump. Trump is set to begin a second term as US president, and Somaliland is hoping for his support. Several leading State Department officials who worked on Africa policy during Trump's first term have publicly voiced support for recognizing Somaliland. On the other hand, Trump decreased US engagement with Somalia by withdrawing American troops. So when Trump was declared winner, Somaliland was quick to congratulate. Donald Trump's new Africa policy will be closely watched by the new Somaliland president. The Horn of Africa will be the talking point in the upcoming days and months. Now, to discuss this further, the impact of Somaliland elections in the region, we are joined by Dr. Mohammed Farah Hirsi, Director of the Academy for Peace and Development, a political analyst, joining us live from Hargeisa in Somaliland. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what are the major challenges and stakes for Somaliland in these upcoming presidential polls? And how might the outcome influence the region's political stability and also its aspirations for international recognition?
Thank you so much. I think this is a very historic day for the people of Somaliland. This is not the first time to have popular elections organized here in Somaliland. And Somaliland has been doing and has conducted more than 9 elections for the last 20 years. And it is the only, sovereign independent country in the Horn of Africa which actually has done quite an amazing job in terms of free and fair elections. You have, in Ethiopia or in Somalia or in Djibouti and Eritrea, none of these countries have organized elections the way Somaliland has done for the last 30 years. But the question remains, with all those achievements and success story of Somaliland, none of the AU member states or the rest of the world have recognized Somaliland as an independent sovereign state. And I think this election, the outcome of this election will make sure that Somaliland actually joins the African Union and succeeds in its quest for international recognition.
Right. And Doctor, how does the recent port deal between Somaliland and Ethiopia in exchange for the potential recognition impact Somaliland's quest for international legitimacy and its relations with Somalia and the other Horn of Africa nations?
The current relationship between Somaliland and Somalia is actually, it doesn't exist. There has been talks mediated by the Turkish government for the last 10 years. And those talks and negotiations between Somaliland and Somalia has proven unproductive. Most of the agreements reached by the parties and facilitated by the Turkish government have become actually not implemented by Somalia. And I think that was the one main reason why Somaliland stopped the dialogue with Somalia and actually pursued its unilateral international recognition with Ethiopia. And I think this deal between Somalia and Ethiopia will pave the way for the first country to recognize Somaliland as an independent state. And this is, I think, a very a historic deal for Somaliland. And it's a deal that has been supported by the people of Somaliland as well as by the opposition parties. All the three candidates who are now running for presidential elections are supportive to the deal between Somaliland and Ethiopia. And I think the relationship between Somaliland and Somalia will definitely will not be good.
Right. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us and for your valued insights on all the latest in those upcoming Somaliland elections.
Thank you for having me.
And now shifting our focus to Russia's growing influence in Africa. Reports suggest that Russia has deployed up to 200 military instructors in the Central African nation of Equatorial Guinea to protect the presidency of the 82-year-old president, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo. Now, according to reports, the Russian military instructors had arrived in the past 2 months and might also include troops from Russia's ally Belarus. It is also believed that the military personnel are a part of the Africa Corps, a Kremlin-controlled paramilitary force which was earlier known as the Wagner Group and has been operating in the Western and Central Africa. Now, the Russian military personnel are likely to be stationed in the capital city of Malabo, which is located on an island in the Gulf of Guinea. Reports suggest that troops are also present in the city of Bata, in the country's mainland territory, which is a sliver of land between Cameroon and Gabon. It is believed that the Russians were training the elite guards in the two main cities of the oil-exporting Equatorial Guinea, which has a population of 1.7 million. The main aim of the Russian military instructors is primarily to ward off any potential threat to the ruling dynasty of Equatorial Guinea. Now, the 82-year-old Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo has ruled the country since seizing power in a coup in 1979. He has been the president since 1982 and is among the longest-serving leaders in the world. The president has survived several coup attempts in the past and has previously beefed up his presidential guard with Moroccan and Israeli soldiers. The president is also known to be grooming his most favorite son, Teodoro Nguema Obiang Mangu, who is likely to succeed him. Now, Obiang's son, known as Teodoran, is the multimillionaire vice president of the country. He has been the subject of investigations, criminal charges, sanctions, and asset seizures in the United States, France, and Britain over embezzlement and money laundering. Now, during his visit to Moscow in September, Equatorial Guinea's president thanked the Russian President Vladimir Putin for sending military instructors to the Central African country.
I would like to express my gratitude to my friend Vladimir Putin for sending instructors to our country who contribute to strengthening the security and defense of our country, which is of great importance because Equatorial Guinea is always faced with threats. But we were able to survive and are surviving thanks to the support that our society has shown. And our society has received the presence of Russian experts in Equatorial Guinea with great enthusiasm. I hope that the formation that they dispense to their Guinean friends will grant the security of our country.
The knowledge of Russian troops in Equatorial Guinea comes just days after a shocking high-profile sex scandal that made headlines around the world and brought the country into the limelight. Over 400 sex tapes involving Equatorial Guinean civil servant Balthazar Ebang Ngonga have been doing the rounds on social media platforms. Some of the women in the videos included Ngonga's wife as well as the president's cousin and sister. The scandal has pushed the government into panic mode as the videos have diminished Equatorial Guinea's image forcing the president to crack down on sex in government offices. While many believe the incident has only brought to light a much more underlying problem, that some believe that the sex scandal is a part of a larger plot against Equatorial Guinea's president. The details about Russian troops in the African country also comes days after Putin offered total support for Africa in a summit hosted for African partners in the Russian city of Sochi. Now, Moscow has been courting fresh diplomatic, political and economic ties with African countries in recent years to increase its influence after it faced isolation from the West following its full-scale offensive against Ukraine. Putin has been aiming to build stronger relations by pursuing narratives such as blasting neo-colonialism and Western hegemony, while promoting his own vision of a multipolar world. Economically, Russia has been pouring in large investments in the raw materials and energy sectors. In terms of military cooperation with African nations, Moscow has been aggressively expanding in the continent by using the private security company the Africa Corps. Russian mercenaries are taking up roles from protecting African leaders to helping states fight extremists. They have been reportedly active in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger and Central African Republic, among several other countries. Now, many of these African countries have also turned their backs on their former colonizers and sought closer ties with Moscow. In such a backdrop, Equatorial Guinea has also sought closer ties with Moscow. Now, Russia has been among the top exporter of arms to the Central African country, and the two countries have looked to partner in the oil and gas sector. Russia has even restored and resumed embassy operations in Equatorial Guinea, banking on the rise in approval ratings of Moscow in the continent.
We are delighted that the Embassy of the Russian Federation has resumed its work in the Republic of Equatorial Guinea. There was a long break after the early 1990s. We have now restored the functioning of our diplomatic mission. That will make it easier for us to communicate on a regular schedule. Let us move forward in a positive manner.
With Russia's deployment of troops in Equatorial Guinea, it is clear that Putin is finding more friends than foes as the West struggles to isolate him over the war in Ukraine. And shifting focus to Uganda, where it seems the government has found some new enemies. Only this time, it is not armed militants or infiltrators, but TikTokers who have been detained by Ugandan authorities for insulting the president and his family. At least 3 TikTokers in Uganda have been recently arrested. The influencers reportedly shared content on a social media platform, which, as per prosecutors, was intended to ridicule, degrade, demean and promote hostility toward the First family and others linked to the ruling party. They face charges of hate speech and spreading malicious information against the President Yoweri Museveni and his family. Those detained are of ages 28, 21 and 19. 2 of them appeared in court on Monday and denied the offences. It is not clear which of their videos led to the arrests, but one of them, who goes by the username LuckyChoice70, reportedly posted a video in April criticizing the First family using sexually explicit terms. This is not the first time TikTokers have faced such action in Uganda. In July of this year, a 24-year-old TikToker was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the same charges. The sentencing and arrests are a part of a broader campaign by security agencies in Uganda to crack down on people using social media to insult senior government officials. In September, a police spokesperson cautioned the public against abusing the president, calling it an offense. Now, these curbs over media and internet freedom have raised concerns over the governing style of President Yoweri Museveni, who has been ruling the country over the past 4 decades. In 2022, he introduced a new law called the Computer Misuse Act, which targets those spreading malicious information and hate speech. Since then, several content creators have been jailed under this act. The law has sparked international concerns. The US government has reportedly accused Uganda of restricting internet freedom through the use of criminal punishments. Rights groups are also regularly denounced by Ugandan authorities over violations of human rights. Now, several digital activists in Uganda have protested against the controversial legislations. The crackdown on freedom of expression in Uganda also comes when public dissatisfaction with the government is on the rise over other issues. Earlier this year, several young Ugandans held anti-government rallies to protest against corruption and other pressing issues in the country. Now, these protests were also mobilized through social media. However, these rallies were suppressed as the authorities used stringent measures to curb the demonstrations. Hundreds of protesters were also arrested. And now the use of force, violence and laws to restrict freedom of expression has raised fears over the future of Uganda under the continued authoritarian rule. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. And for today's story, we take you to a village in Egypt, which is turning into a learning center. A new community library is providing villagers access to resources, which are only available in the capital, Cairo, or other big cities. Now, children who once used to spend their time fighting or lazing around are now reading and gaining knowledge about their culture. Our next report is about an Egyptian village churning out bibliophiles. Take a look.
At the heart of Egypt's Sharqiya region, a small village is turning into a learning center. A newly opened community library is spreading culture into the remote area. The library is located in Kafra Abu Nafi, a delta village in Egypt's Sharqiya governorate, far away from the capital of Cairo. Unlike the bustling cities, the remote area had a lack of cultural and learning resources. But thanks to this new library, people have gotten a chance to learn, explore and express their creativity. The problem was identified by Reem Nafi, an author of children's books, and her uncle Hamdi Nafi. They often found young kids around them spending away their time, bored, dejected and uninterested. Having no place to gain wisdom hampered the mental growth of the children. It is then that the Nafi family decided to establish a community library to offer learning activities to the village at par with the capital and other big cities.
When I looked at the children in the village around me, I found them truly spending a boring time. The child finishes homework if he has some, does everything that can be done, and the rest of the day is empty. There is nothing to be done, no place to go, nowhere that can gather the children of the community to do something useful. When I look at them, I either find them fighting or doing bad things, breaking stuff, throwing stones, or beating the dogs. There is no avenue for them to find a space to develop themselves or dream for a better future.
Once the library was up and running, it saw an unusually high demand. So the library operations were put on a structured schedule. It is now open 6 days a week. People are divided into groups and are given time slots twice a week to visit the library. The learning center is not just for children. Young adults and seniors are also welcome. The library also has volunteers to teach people about things that were once inaccessible in Egypt's rural areas.
The library does not only welcome children, but it welcomes youth, women, and even men, anyone who needs cultural support, who is looking for information or need courses of any sort.
The founders of the library are on a mission to bring back the culture of reading books and to spread knowledge in an era when everything is just an internet search away, But concerns over inaccuracy and misinformation on social media remain.
We notice that there is a very big gap between the book and the reader. Everyone depends on the internet and new things like social media websites, which I don't want to say always, but most of the time have no sources, and there is a lot of wrong information. But the book's author and its publisher are known. The book is an honest friend for culture.
The efforts to make books new friends of the people in Delta Village are proving to be successful. It has sown the seeds of curiosity in the village children. Young kids are engaging in education as well as recreational activities at the library. There is a lot of excitement when the library opens.
Before the library, I didn't know much about science, technology, and mathematics. Once the library was open, I learned a lot, and I learned how to use the computer.
This is one of the most important things that I saw changing. The children are centered around the library, revolving around it. They look for, when the library opens, the timings in which they can come twice a week to the library.
With the successful model, the library founders are planning on establishing similar learning centers in thousands of Egyptian villages. They have already started developing a similar project in the Delta city of Mansoura. With more community libraries springing up, they could empower rural Egypt and make sure that education and learning are not beyond anyone's reach.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost, where we